started. Thank you all for joining us. The Interstate Renewable Energy Council, as some of our friends in the chat know, we are a national nonprofit organization working to remove barriers to deployment of clean energy for all Americans. We do this through state regulatory reform, local initiatives such as our Soul Smart program, which help communities around the U.S. accelerate their solar, and we do this through workforce development. Next slide, please. As I stated earlier, we have a community convening today, and we have a lot of great information to share with you as it relates to workforce development. So I'll give an introduction to the National Clean Energy Workforce Alliance, which some of you may be familiar with. So after that, we will move into our short workforce development presentations that MREA, where MREA invited organizations to participate. So today we have Freedom Forever, PV Case, Revolve, Solar Landscape, Elevate, next slide please, the City of Minneapolis, and Solar United. We'll also hear from the Midwest Renewable Energy Association, and we will proceed with a stakeholder review, discussion, and next steps, and then we will proceed into our Q&A, which we have every webinar to give you a chance to ask questions about your specific areas. Next slide, please. The National Clean Energy Workforce Alliance Partnership is a partnership between the National Council for Workforce Education and the National Green Jobs Advisory Council. This is the Alliance team, Dr. Cynthia Finley, myself, Dr. Deb Rowe, and Dr. Gerard Melicon. So we thank all of our partners for working with us to be able to host these webinars, and we definitely would be remiss without thanking the Bank of America for the funding to allow us to do this work. Next slide, please. Just a few reminders. Listeners are on mute. Please use the Q&A tab to send us any questions you may have. We will record this presentation and send it out with other resources after the webinar, not immediately after, because we do have to gather all of the resources together, but within no later than a week, the presentation should be out. These webinars happen the third Thursday of every month. And please note that we have enabled closed captioning for this webinar. If attendees would like to use closed captioning, press Show Caption in the user control panel at the bottom of your screen, and that will enable the closed captioning for you. Next slide, please. If you're on this webinar, you would agree that workforce development does not happen by accident. It does not happen by chance. We have to be very intentional in our work and partnerships. And in order to scale, to rapidly scale a diverse and sustainable clean energy workforce, we need to leverage best practices, resources, and create strong partnerships. And I think we have been very intentional with doing all three of those things with this series of webinars. We continue to work to connect the dots and address clean energy workforce development more holistically, focusing on every aspect of workforce development. So we do this, next slide please, by three areas of focus: funding and program design, training, education, and credentialing, recruitment and support of workers and learners, and employer recruitment and retention. We need all of these strategic areas of focus to be successful in workforce development. Next slide, please. Thank you. So IREC has launched our workforce development strategy, and some of you may be familiar with Green Workforce Connect. If you're not familiar with it, check out the chat. I'm sure Avery is dropping the link there as I speak. Go over and take a look at this amazing platform. This platform is a space where we are connecting job seekers, employers, training providers, and contractors to support a highly trained and diverse energy workforce. It initially started out in weatherization, but as I mentioned, it's our workforce strategy. So now you will see information about registered apprenticeship programs. In the fall, you will see information about the solar workforce. So it is evolving, and it is a living platform, and will host our workforce programs as we launch new initiatives. The last thing I want to let you know is that, you can go to the next slide, Michelle. We are excited to share that we are planning to hold an event in New York Climate Week in collaboration with Solar One. If you'll be in New York on September 23rd, please drop a note in the chat and let us know, and we'll get an invitation to you. Today's presenters, exciting. We have Nick, the Executive Director of MREA, along with Ellen, who is the Associate Director at MREA. Next slide, please. The short presentations will consist of Janet, who is the Director of Talent Acquisition for Freedom Forever, Stefan Boehm, who is the Education Content Manager at PV Case, Lauren, who is the Solar Ambassador and Program Manager for Revolve, Sarah, who is the Executive Director for Workforce Development for the Solar Landscape, Nicole, who is the Senior Project Manager and the Senior Project Manager, Workforce and Development Contractor for Elevate, and Grant Schaefer, who is with Solar United. Last but certainly not least, we have Justo Garcia, who is with the city of Minneapolis, and he'll be sharing a presentation as well. So I am going to turn it over to MREA for an introduction and overview of their association, and then we will go into the short presentations. Again, thank you for joining.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for coming. I'm Ellen Barlas from the Midwest Renewable Energy Association. The MREA has been selected by the U.S. Department of Energy as a lead organization to support equitable workforce development practices within the solar industry. Our workforce effort is part of the National Equitable Solar Communities of Practice, which is a project working to increase the benefits of solar development. To advance the objectives of the National Equitable Solar Workforce Communities of Practice, the MREA and IREC, through the National Clean Energy Workforce Alliance, are hosting this virtual community-wide convening. This event aims to engage stakeholders in a brief review of a draft solar workforce landscape review and gap analysis, which Nick will be presenting, and showcase real-life examples of workforce development programs. So these real-life examples will be in the form of 6 short presentations, which will be coming up right now. And I just want to thank you all in advance to our presenters who have prepared content to talk about this really important project. And thank you. Michelle, did you want to get the first? There we go. Mm-hmm. So here's Janet Gomez from Freedom Forever. And Janet, when you're ready, you can present.
Thank you so much, Ellen. Appreciate the introduction. Next slide, please. Hello, everyone. Freedom Forever, we're a solar installation company, and we have we're servicing 33 different states across the country, including 1 US territory, out of 53 installation hubs. So definitely with our company, we have 7 core values that really drive what we do every day and really set the culture that we experience here at Freedom. And some of my favorite core values include integrity, servant leadership, collaboration, and most importantly, diversity. Next slide, please. How we partner and really drive that diversity forward is by partnering with different workforce organizations, community partners to really drive equitable workforce within our company and introducing them to the world of solar, ensuring that our industry is equitable. Some of our successful partnerships have been Urban League, OAI, as you guys can see a number of them here listed. These are some of our most successful partnerships that we've been cultivating for years and have really seen some amazing results from those efforts. Next slide, please. To give a little example of some of the activities that we do with our partners, we visit them in their training centers, bring out branch leaders with us to present to their students, showcasing the different career paths that solar has to offer. It's a very complex and exciting industry, so really wanting them to learn about all the different avenues, conducting one-on-one interviews right then and there, attending some of their graduation ceremonies to meet with students immediately after completing their courses and introducing them to a role. In some cases, we've been able to start them literally the next week. So it's very exciting to see them go from completing their courses to starting a new exciting career opportunity. We participate in job fairs, career events, donate materials so they can set up mock roofs, mock displays in their warehouses or training facilities. And we serve as advisory committee. We serve on their advisory committees to help develop some of these training curriculums and programs. Next slide, please. And along with that, we are investing in, once we hire and onboard our our new employees, we are invested in their growth and ensuring that everyone thrives. Freedom Forever, we are one of the first solar companies that has actually implemented a apprenticeship program, and we're seeking national apprenticeship guideline standard certifications and are the first to register employee-sponsored apprenticeship programs in multiple states. So really excited to launch this new program in 2024, September of this year. And as you can see, for us, it's all about caring about the team we hire, ensuring that they see the value in our industry and ensuring that they're thriving in their roles and learning and gaining the most experience and knowledge possible. Next slide. That's all for me.
Hi there, my name is Stefan Böhme, and I'm the Education Content Manager here at PVCase. PVCase stands for Photovoltaic Computer-Aided Solar Engineering and was founded in 2018. Now, next slide, please. The rapid expansion of renewable energy in the sector has obviously created a high demand for skilled professionals that are capable of designing and implementing utility-scale solar projects. And according to Solar Powers Europe's latest jobs report in 2023, the workforce grew by 39% from 466,000 in 2021 to 648,000 by the end of 2022. So this demand predicted to grow even more by 2025 to about 1 million workers that will be needed in the EU to deliver well-functioning and safe solar equipment and installations. Next slide, please. Now, in 2023, our client MREA, who is based in Wales, approached PVCase suggesting to include the PVCase ground mount, which is a tool that we produce, into the University of Applied Science of Austria curriculum. Now, the MREA is based in Wales and is a leading company that drives the transition to green energy through the acquisition, the development, construction, and the operation of large solar power plants. They also produce and support material for the university. They guide them through lectures and workshops and also provide internships. So Manuel Meyer provided the first initial draft to a curriculum that was injected into the university. The university itself in Upper Austria offers sustainable energy systems master courses and is a leading research institute with over 300 research and development projects of their 4 schools, and they are cooperating with more than 600 national and international partners. The goal for this program was to reduce the time gaining engineering skills while introducing design automation tools like PVK's ground mount into the curriculum and, of course, training the students there. It was also a goal to develop an innovative educational initiative and to prepare future solar engineers with the latest tools and practical knowledge that they require for their success. The target group for this program was only the systems master program, so sustainable engineering energy systems masters at the university. Next slide, please. Within 6 months, we were able to fully integrate PVK's ground mount into the theoretical lectures at the university. Manuel Meyer, who was driving that as a lecturer, provided the on-site lectures, including assignments to students, coordinated the initial student sign-up and the process to get access for the tool with the help of PVKs. And the professors, obviously, who were leading the course from a university side, took their role and helped us out. Within 2 months, they were able to organize the structure and provide examples for project-based learning. The educational licenses for students were provided by PVKs and enabled the students to get hands-on experience in the utility-scale solar planning and design with PVK's ground mount. And within a month, all students were successfully enrolled, which is really, really fast. Students were also given access to comprehensive learning material on the PVK's Academy and our help center, and this allowed them to delve deeper into the subject of the tool and understanding how it works, all its capabilities, and so on. Next slide, please. Since the first launch of the program in 2023, 57 students participated in the program, and even 21 of them chose PVK's ground mount as their tool of choice for their master's thesis. Discounted internship licenses were offered now to industry partners, and initiatives to provide working students and interns with learning opportunities at lower cost for the duration of their employment or their internships were also provided. Now, next slide, please. The challenges that we faced were that most students had basic knowledge of AutoCAD, so this was solved by adding basic AutoCAD course. Students were also given PVK's licenses, and we have now automated this the acquisition of these licenses. The product suite is also available, and we have created a bigger curriculum even to support universities to teach GIS, CNI, rooftop, and even yield analysis. Next slide, please. It took 6 months to get the first pilot running, and we're super happy that it actually worked out. The rest you can see in the slides. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Stefan. I'm Lauren Friedman. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Solar Ambassador Program Manager at Revolve. I'm excited to share a bit about how we engage college students in climate action to prep for clean energy careers today. So a little bit about Revolve first. Revolve is a clean energy nonprofit that helps other nonprofits go solar. We were founded and are headquartered in San Francisco, but work with nonprofits across the country. We finance and manage the installation plus the O&M process for nonprofits and houses of worship. And then we've done so in 18 states so far. Oh, sorry, next slide, please. And you can pop to the next one after that. Thank you. The Solar Ambassador Program is an academic year-long fellowship in which students form campus teams and conduct outreach in their communities to find a nonprofit that's interested in going solar with Revolve. They then shadow our staff through the solar project development process, all the while hosting solar education events on their campus and gaining clean energy industry skills. Revolve provides training on solar energy, project finance, and sales, and students gain real-world experience developing a solar project, as well as career support when they're ready to graduate and go into their job. Next slide, please. Students receive training through a 2-day orientation, and then there's continuing education via monthly webinars. The students then work as an on-campus team to host those education events I mentioned and find a nonprofit. The fellowship also has a strong emphasis on career pathway exposure and development. We do resume review, interview prep, and this past spring piloted a mentorship component with the organization CELI, the Clean Energy Leadership Institute. And at the end of the fellowship, we connect the graduating seniors with career opportunities with our network of employers. Next slide, please. So the benefits of the program to the student are that they get to learn about solar, clean energy, and project development, finance, all the while getting this real world experience that's really unique, and learning how to, talk to folks, educate folks about climate change and solar. They learn a lot of transferable skills like teamwork, project management, and leadership, and receive a certificate of completion at the end of the fellowship. Next slide. Here are some of the schools that we work with in 2023 through 24 academic year. This past year, we did a big push to engage students from smaller schools. Some of those new partner schools were St. John's University in Queens, New York, New Jersey City University, and the University of Northern Michigan. Next slide. To help make the experience of the program a bit more tangible for y'all, I wanted to spotlight our team at Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech joined the program in 2022. In their second year, they connected with the Lifeline Animal Project, which is Georgia's largest animal welfare organization. The students sold Lifeline and all the ways solar could benefit their organization, and we installed the system at the beginning of this year. Lifeline is expected to see $1.6 million in savings on their electric bills over their solar system's lifetime, and the students got to throw this really great ribbon cutting ceremony to celebrate the project, where they invited local elected officials, including Atlanta's chief sustainability officer, and we're even featured on the local Atlanta news. You can see a still of one of the ambassadors, Julia, featured there. And it was just a really cool experience overall for the students that grew their skill set, their confidence, importantly, both in solar and in presenting, and their interest in solar careers. Next slide, please. A bit about the overall impact. The program has served 440 plus ambassadors from 46 universities in the 10 years we've been operating. Those ambassadors have helped 16 nonprofits go solar so far, and those projects are expected to avoid 17.8 million pounds of CO2 over the lifetime of the system. So one of my favorite things is that the students get to learn about solar while having a real tangible impact on these nonprofits. Next slide. And then some of the results from our most recent cohort, our students rated a 5 out of 5 average that the program increased their interest in a solar career. The employment rate for graduating seniors this past year is 77% so far. We had a few who were finishing up summer classes, so we do expect that number to increase. And 100% of those reporting jobs are working in solar or related field like energy efficiency or electric vehicles. Next slide. So what's on the horizon for us? I mentioned that we did a big push to work with smaller schools this past year. We want to continue that work, focusing on MSIs, HBCUs, community colleges, rural schools. And we also want to introduce more advocacy and education work into the program. If anyone is interested in learning more, I will drop our website and my email in the chat. Thanks for your time.
Hi, everybody. Great to see some familiar names in the chat here today. My name is Sarah Pidgeon. I'm the Executive Director for Workforce Development at Solar Landscape. You can go to the next slide. So Solar Landscape, we are a commercial and community solar company. We're based in New Jersey, but we work across the country. We really focus on community solar, and we were rated last year the #1 provider of LMI community solar in the nation, according to Groundswell. Next slide. So one of the reasons I'm in this role is because Solar Landscape has demonstrated a real commitment to equitable workforce development. So as a solar company developing community solar projects, we feel that workforce development is key to ensuring that the access to the benefits of clean energy and solar power extend beyond just accessing the solar and accessing the savings, but also getting the training and education that can prepare folks for jobs and family sustaining jobs at that. Next slide. So we have, like I said, we have an in-house workforce development program launched in 2017. We have 3 core parts of our program. The biggest one is called Step Up. We do a crash course solar installation job training that we actually bring to locations around the country. So we bring hands-on equipment and supplies, and we do 1 to 2 week solar training at partners locations in the different states where we work. We've reached over 2,200 trainees at this point. We also have a train the trainer program. We work with high school career and technical education teachers, provide them with solar equipment, curriculum resources, do a hands-on training to help them actually bring solar installation training to their classroom. In addition, we offer that program for non-formal educators and educators and instructors at partner nonprofit organizations. And finally, we have a Green Ambassador program, GAP, that's a virtual solar energy course available through HeatSpring. I think I saw some HeatSpring folks in the audience today. We do classroom visits and an annual $20,000 scholarship challenge for high school age youth. Partnerships are really key to everything that we do. As coming from the industry, we have instructors with 10+ years of experience in the solar industry, which is actually a lot. And we really believe that it's important to work in collaboration with the communities where we're developing projects. And that means partnering with leading community-based organizations and workforce institutions who have the expertise in collaborating and working with their communities. Next slide. Even though we started in New Jersey, we do a lot of work in Illinois and in Chicago. We actually have, I believe it's just over 130 megawatts of community solar in development in the state of Illinois. And we are in the process of launching our programs there. So these are just some of our current and past workforce partners. I also know there's so many amazing organizations doing work in Illinois, including Elevate, who's I think presenting right after me. Our training model, like I said, it is a crash course. It's hands-on. We introduce folks to the world of solar careers and then get them excited and get them interested and talk to them about all of the local job opportunities and additional more advanced in-depth training opportunities. All of our participants receive stipends. They earn a minimum of $100 a day to go through our training, certificates, and access to transportation assistance. Next slide. When I was prepping for this webinar today, I was really thinking about what would be helpful takeaways for other folks and what I've learned in my years of working in solar education and workforce development. Prior to joining Solar Landscape, I worked for a nonprofit in New York City called Solar One. Shout out to Solar One, they're also here. And one of the things that I really learned from working there and working here at Solar Landscape is that those partnerships are critical. I also think it's important to offer customized training to meet local needs, and Train the Trainer really supports program sustainability. So we really believe that it's important to train other educators because we can't be everywhere where we work. Thank you, guys.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Clean Energy Workforce Training Programs, Methodology and Approach from Elevate. Next slide, please. I'd like to introduce who will be presenting with me, my colleagues, Jalen McDonald, as well as Tina Marie Williamson, who are both project coordinators on the Workforce and Contractor Development Department. I am Nicole Brown, the Senior Project Manager in the Workforce and Contractor Development Department. Next slide, please. For our agenda, we'll be doing our introductions, discussing who we are, our mission, our vision, and then just giving an overview of our Clean Energy Workforce Training Program. Next slide. Who we are. Elevate is a nonprofit organization that works nationally, and we are currently headquartered in Chicago. Elevate designs and implements programs to ensure that everyone has clean and affordable heat, power, and water in their homes and communities, no matter who they are or where they live. We are focused on equity through climate action. Next slide, please. Elevate's mission is that we design and implement programs that reduce costs, protect people and the environment, and ensure that the benefits of clean and efficient energy use reach those who need them most. Next slide. Our vision is that Elevate seeks to create a just and equitable world in which everyone has clean and affordable heat, cooling, power, and water in their homes and communities, prioritizing frontline communities. Next slide. Next, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Jalen, who's going to discuss more our overview of our Clean Energy Workforce Training Program itself. Jalen?
So we offer a 4 to 16-week training program that consists of virtual, hands-on, and classroom learning and activities. And upon completion of our training program, our participants will walk away with hopefully 7 or more certifications or accreditations that will give them leverage in the clean energy workforce industry. Next slide, please. And here's how we do it, our outreach and recruitment. So it starts with our community and partner engagement, which just consists of us talking to our partners, going out to events and telling a little brief overview about our program. And then from there, we'll have information sessions for those potential prospects who are interested in our program. And we'll go a little more in depth about what we offer and what we do here at Elevate. And then for those who are serious for moving to the next steps, they can submit an application with us. And then from there, we'll do an interview and a selection process for who we accept into our program for the next 4 to 16 weeks. And now I'll turn it over to our my coworker, Tina Marie Wilson, for our partner engagement.
Thank you so much, Jay. So partner engagement, this is the important planning stage where we collaborate with all the persons and elements involved leading up to the launch of that cohort. This includes reviewing the curriculum, the class schedule internally, along with the trainers and instructors. So we review and refine every aspect to be intentional in our impact. Next slide, please. Benefits of that level of engagement makes room and grows the level of consideration needed to show up for the students that we serve. We consider and anticipate barriers that participants may experience and supply beneficial resources when needed. 2 examples that I'd like to highlight are intensive care management and financial assistance in the form of stipends. Case management is conducted twice a week, and during these 10 to 15-minute one-on-ones, we give our full attention to hearing each individual's feelings, experiences, and barriers, if applicable, allowing us to offer support in real time. The stipends provide support to the individuals financially, so each student can focus on their successful program completion. These stipends match industry wages of the average solar installer in the clean energy sector. Next slide. Next, Nicole will take it from here.
Thank you so much, Tina Marie. So after we've done one of our successful cohorts, one of the most important parts is conducting our lessons learned. We do them externally with partners as well as internally so that we can go over and review program successes and challenges, look at mitigation strategies that we've had to conduct while we were in the program, gathering feedback from partner engagement, and then continuing to refine for our next cohort. Next slide, please. If you'd like to find out more about what we do, please feel free to utilize the QR code at the bottom. My information is in the middle, as well as my email address. Thank you so much for your time.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for being here. My name is Justo Garcia, and I'm a program manager here with the city of Minneapolis. We have a program called the Green Career Exploration Program. Next slide, please. The Green Career Exploration Program, it's based on our Climate Legacy Initiative goals. Basically, the Climate Legacy Initiative goals is it's part of our effort to accelerate the reduction of greenhouse emission. The city of Minneapolis really is looking into becoming a model city to follow in terms of reduction of carbon or greenhouse emissions. And we do this incorporating in several programs. I'm sorry, thank you. We do this incorporating several programs, and one of those is looking into renewable energy. We see and solar as one of those activities or initiatives that is going to help us to achieve those goals, especially the most ambitious goal, which is reduction by 2030 at 75% of greenhouse emissions. So next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah, we have partnered. We've been working with a partner. Oh, previous one. Sorry. Yeah, we've been working with a wonderful partner that we found at MREA, Midwest Renewable Energy Association, and we are currently providing training, solar trainings in 2 of our areas within the city of Minneapolis. Those areas are denominated green zone. Green zones are areas in which the city have intentionally really focus the attention in providing investment. Those are areas traditionally, disenfranchised, in which right now we are really putting in the front realm of all our initiatives. The goals, the program goal first is, equip youth with essential skill for career in solar industry and environmentally friendly career paths to address urgent climate concerns. The targeted group, of course, we are working within the green zone, which is predominantly Black, Brown, and Indigenous communities. Next, please. Our training sections actually takes part in 2 centers. One is what is called the RTC, and this is in the north part of Minneapolis, and there is one that we haven't listed here, which is in South Minneapolis, which is in Sabatini Community Center. And the idea of having those centers around these 2 locations, they are very accessible for residents on the green zone. There's the areas that we really try to being intentional in addressing issues and providing residents of those areas with this access to this training. This customized training meets the pathway to North American Board Certificate Energy Practitioner, to NACEP, so they can actually, for completing these trainings, they can get certified, take the test and get certified. No barriers basically to introductory solar training program. And solar training labs, this actually provide a hands-on experience. The labs actually, we actually have 2 new wonderful labs who have been, we have acquired and have really this opportunity to get our participant that hands-on experience right there. Next one, please. Next slide, yeah. Since we started, we actually have 219 students participant in an MREA solar trainings at the RT Center. This number doesn't reflect the ones that we have actually with a new location in South Minneapolis. In 2024, MREA will provide 12 classes, and we are actually in right now more than 3/4 done from those. We have 23 students secure pay internship. 20 students were hired full-time by 6 solar companies around the Minneapolis metro area. Next one, please. Well, the challenge we face, I mean, especially the main one have to do with our tests, our certification tests. We are partnered with MREA. We are looking at strategies to make sure more of our participants are able to pass those, provide wraparound services for those who are in our training to have access to childcare, transportation, and the most important, to succeed in this program, a partnership between the city of Minneapolis and other community organizations. Thank you. Next, I think my time is up. It took basically those 4 years to build this program, but I wish we would have a little bit more time, but thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm having a bit of trouble getting my video started here, but go ahead and start. Thanks to all those great presentations. It's nice to meet everybody. Solar United National was created in South Carolina here to address, obviously, the growing needs of the solar, EV, and energy auditors required to meet the electrification of our state. Back in 2020, the South Carolina Solar Council and the State Energy Office did a comprehensive study of the current workforce that was in our state, and we were completely underserved. And so moving forward, after the IRA was passed, my partners and I decided to start a development company. We decided not to be an installer company because we wanted to really focus on workforce development within the projects that we developed. If you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, please. Our approach in South Carolina was a little bit different to what you may have seen. We are focused primarily on rural areas. You can see we've won 2 Department of Energy Hero X prizes focusing on energizing rural communities and bringing community solar to folks here in South Carolina. We do not have very favorable community solar laws or utility models. And so we were very innovative in trying to find some models that work. But everything that we did was geared around bringing workforce development to our sites across the state. The projects to training model is designed so that when you train folks, you're not just training them. We're trying to provide careers in the clean energy economy and specifically working in energy justice communities that have been underserved or disparaged against. So when you bring a project to a town or a city, the last thing you want to do is import workers from outside of that city. So we work with mayors and officials or whoever controls the process to give the permitting out to then push back and do community agreements that allow for folks in the local areas to be trained and then hired. Those trainings specifically work on the equipment that's being installed on those projects. You can see our map there, all of the areas that we're working on. Since this map is published, we actually have another 5 centers that we're talking to. We work with nonprofits, existing nonprofits in the areas that already do workforce development or trainings. So we're not trying to build any new structures or training centers. We're really looking to expand our capacity for organizations that exist already or doing the work already. Next slide, please. In our state, we realize that the apprenticeship programs that are available are for an electrician. And so here you can see this is the EV slide, but it would be the same in the solar world. Most people that are in this world realize that you have a solar system or an electric vehicle or a battery, they all have inverters. Well, those electricians are going to install that and then go on to the next job. The problem that we're going to arrive with as we install more and more of these systems is there isn't in our state a dedicated EV or solar service technician. And that is where we've partnered with the technical colleges, the middle and high schools to show a career pathway and try and create a job description in our state so that we can create not just an electrician apprenticeship pathway, but also an EV and solar service technician pathway. So if you look at the hardware installation can be done by the electricians, but it's the software updates and maintenance that needs to be done twice a year on some of these EV chargers and the solar systems, same things for the batteries and the inverters that need constant updates. who is going to do that work? You don't want to send a $75 electrician out to service that when you can send out a service technician. And if you remember our map, we've created this network of organizations and communities across the state that allow us then to be able to service. Next slide, please. So the energy auditors is the third installation of apprenticeships that we're going after. And then next slide, please. And of course, and then the other side of what we do is work in rural communities, trying to bring controlled environment agriculture to them as part of our project scope. This has to do with healthy living, all the things that marginalized communities deal with. On top of food deserts, we try and bring more opportunities to disadvantaged farmers that are, in our case, dealing with saltwater creep, losing their traditional crops. Last slide, please. And this was the 4-car solar carport that our students in Georgetown, we just finished our last training in Georgetown last month. Our partners there, 7 Dimensions Outreach and the Gullah Geechee Chamber Foundation, helped us source 40 students. 14 of them came into the course and qualified. So this was the carport that was built in the training center. It had 2 car chargers and a battery to give the training center resilience in storms. Look forward to chatting to people. Thank you very much for the time.
Hey all, I'm Nick. Hope you all can hear me. I'll share my screen and start our presentation. Thanks all for coming, and thanks to our presenters. As we kind of alluded to, this is part of a national effort by the US DOE to create communities of practice focused on a number of facets of solar market development. This is the Equitable Solar Workforce Community Practice. We're working on a contract with DOE with 6 great partners, including IREC. Thank you so much, Janelle and team, for hosting this webinar, and everybody that's participated. Grid Alternatives, City of Minneapolis, Renewables Forward, Solar Energy International, and a number of unions. And the goal here is to define the landscape for solar training, identify gaps, and really issue a final report that looks at best practices for scaling equitable access to workforce. The presentations you just saw were submitted based on a request, and I think what you'll find interesting, and before we start this landscape analysis, is the diversity of workforce activities that are happening. You'll notice that there were presentations focused on university partnerships, on community partnerships, fully paid training, really focusing on different aspects of the industry outside of electrician. Well, you'll notice that there weren't any presentations about apprenticeship, but I know a number of people on the call operate very effective apprenticeship programs, and we're going to talk about that in this landscape analysis. We are in the discovery phase still, so I will just note that after this presentation, what you'll see is we'll send out a survey in hopes that you'll respond to this landscape analysis with additional information, points that you strongly agree with, gaps that we missed, points that you disagree with. So as I'm going through this presentation, I'd ask you to take notes because you'll get a survey immediately afterwards. This is really a large and complex topic and an evolving landscape. My background, I'm the executive director of the Midwest Renewable Energy Association. We were established in 1990. as a nonprofit. We work in 7 Midwest states. We've been doing workforce training since that time. We provide training to over 800 individuals a year. And we have partnerships and support. We believe rising tide lifts all boats, and have partnered with training programs, community colleges, technical colleges, apprenticeship programs to support and elevate and fill their training programs. We're a member-based association, so we also help employers find workers. And so we've been involved in a lot of aspects of the market, and are really excited to be part of this work. So without further ado, one thing that,
Nick,
maybe.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Can you use slideshow so that it?
Oh, I thought I was doing that. I'm sorry.
Thank you. No problem.
So maybe we can see better now. Sorry about that. So we'll just start with some basic data. I've included a lot of slides in the presentation because we're planning to send this to everybody afterwards, but I may just breeze over some slides, and then we'll save a lot of time at the end for open discussion.
And it did not convert to slideshow, Nick. Sorry to interrupt you, but we do have a request for accommodations. It did not change. I'm still seeing as if you're editing the slides.
Let's try again here. All right. Sorry about that. We will try again. It's funny, I requested to IREC that they have me advance the slides, and they were accommodating me. Now I'm giving them problems. So that's what you get for accommodating my requests.
No worries. I'm sure we'll get it figured out.
Okay, let's try this again. All right.
No, it did not work.
So you're still seeing it as if I'm editing it?
Yes. If we don't get it this time, I'm sure we can just go ahead and move forward with.
Or we could hand it back to Michelle and she can advance slides for me. That's fine also. I'm not exactly sure why it's not working.
Did you do that? Just let me know.
Yeah, I think yours was working. Let's do that.
Thank you, Michelle.
All right, well, back to square one. Here we go. So if you want to go to the next slide. We'll go through some basics of the kind of like solar workforce landscape, starting with total employment. This is from the IREC solar job census. So many of you are familiar with that. There is also SEER, which has similar numbers, and we'll talk about kind of some of the state-based studies as much as there are any. But what you'll see is pretty solid projections of solar job growth from 2016 to 2022. Pretty much leveled off. Next slide, please. And within that solar job projection, the census started looking at majority time solar employment back in 2017. So that, you know, the way that the census works is basically direct calls to solar employers. And in 2016, we started to realize that many of the solar workers out there were not working full-time on solar jobs. The contention now is that's likely increasing. And so you can see when you start looking at majority time solar workers, that jobs number increases by about 100,000 year over year. Next slide, please. Another kind of facet of the industry is that the majority of solar workers out there are in that installation and project development side. So 65% of employers surveyed report that 65% of employers report that that's quantity of workers is in installation and project development, which tends to be also reported as one of the hardest jobs to fill. Next slide, please. You'll also notice that majority of solar workers, as reported, work in the residential sector. And you know, there are some questions, and you'll see this in our survey. Is this type of job census where We directly reach out to solar employers to report their workforce participation. Is it in particular capturing the amount of non-solar workers, electrical trades such as operating engineers, construction craft laborers that are working on utility scale projects? Is the residential market participation overestimated? What we have right now is over half of all solar workers are employed on residential job sites. Next slide, please. Another facet of the industry is solar jobs are not evenly dispersed across the country. Solar is responsive to enabling state policy conditions, as you all know, and you can see that jobs follow those policy conditions, whether they be enabling community solar, or residential commercial, or utility scale solar. That tends to be reflected in this patchwork landscape of solar employment across the country. Next slide. One major impact, as we're all aware, on solar employment has been the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act. C in particular has looked at forecasts of this and is forecasting basically an additional 137,000 jobs in solar over forecasts pre-IRA. So the impact is quite substantial, and you can see also a significant growth outside of just installers and developers in the manufacturing, sales, and you can see kind of on the tail end of their projections, rapid growth in operations and maintenance workers. Next slide, please. So historically, much of the training in the solar industry was kind of independently associated with NABCEP certification, and a number of programs were accredited by IREC, and that was a reflection of an industry that was really kind of a cottage industry that really wasn't a substantial portion of new electricity capacity addition. Of course, that has changed. I think the last 5 years, year over year, solar and wind have been the largest source of new electricity capacity addition. And increasingly, states have engaged in this market to advance licensing requirements and ratio requirements. And so when it comes to training programs, most programs should or do align with licensing certification requirements. Some states, such as Illinois, has a multi-pronged approach to recognizing solar installers. You can either graduate from JATC training program, an accredited training program, or have your NABCEP PVIP. Other states require master electrician to sign off on all projects, yet other states require ratios of electricians to non-electricians. And so certification can play a role in that. Whether it plays a role in licensing or not, it is an indication of quality. Certification programs, by certification, I mean an independent third party has some sort of metric, whether it be a test or field competencies or both, to recognize that a student has passed those competencies, and then requires continuing education and proof of field work to maintain. There are also a variety of college programs, that 2-year and 4-year college programs that offer certificates or technical diplomas. We see a kind of a proliferation of those in the past few years across the country. And then degree programs that can be 2 to 4 year degree programs, ranging in many different aspects of technical college programs. In any single state, for example, 3 different technical colleges can offer 3 different degrees related, one in HVAC, one in the electrical engineering department, and another independent. And so there's a wide variety of training programs in the industry. Of note for degree programs at technical and community colleges, 2-year colleges, is those programs typically need to maintain an industry advisory board and also demonstrate workforce demand in their service territory for the profession that they're training. So they tend to have a strong connection with industry. Next slide, please. What we have noticed and increasingly noticed is that a number of occupations are involved in the development of solar projects, particularly utility scale solar projects. Those occupations as tracked by the Department of Labor on ONET is what you'll see is when you look up solar installer, what you'll notice is that it says on ONET still to this day that it's one of the fastest growing professions in the database at a projected 22% annual growth rate. However, if you dig into that ONET data, you'll notice that many states report as NA for not available as far as state-based growth projections, and much of it is driven by high growth states. When you look at related occupations, we put a number up here, you'll see a much more modest growth rate, but those occupations, those growth rates seem to be justified by much more detailed state level data, since much of these professions are long established. Next slide, please. And so that is a challenging condition when it comes to career mapping. IREC has done a great job of career mapping. They have a new version of their solar career map available, and they are continuing to modify that solar career map, looking at kind of the divergence in the residential commercial space with the utility scale space, and looking at state level solar career maps. We kind of see an industry evolution, divergence of the work process on the residential and commercial side versus the utility scale side, and the division of labor on those projects. The DOL, and we'll talk about this, has also determined that this occupation of solar installer is not apprenticeable, which leads to kind of much less detail in the job tracking and less ability to kind of advance apprenticeship programs or it's related to solar installer, though some are happening at state level. And state laws, of course, shape these career pathways. And as we just discussed in our presentation from South Carolina, some states do not have enabling legislation and have different requirements for licensing. And so the career pathways in each state may be a little different. And this is in the context of the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act, which both has apprenticeship and prevailing wage requirements. So we're kind of seeing a national uplift in solar work overlaid over kind of this 50-state mosaic landscape of solar careers. Next slide, please. We haven't found, and this is a question that we'll ask you in our survey, we haven't found many states that have done any sort of deep dive into solar workforce conditions or trends. However, we did focus a bit on a New York study because some of the conclusions I think are relatively revealing. First, and this is a contention we also have, is that national and state level job estimates based on industry side data, basically directly surveying employers, may be inaccurate as solar installation and maintenance workers work for multiple employers and often across state lines, and increasingly occupations that wouldn't necessarily identify themselves as solar workers are more involved on solar development sites. Solar installation maintenance workers who work in New York do not all reside in the state. And so state level kind of data doesn't necessarily capture that fully. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Oh, I think, did we skip a slide? Anyway, they also have some very interesting findings around racial disparities. Sorry. Yes, next slide. There we go. And in this survey, what they found was that white workers were paid an annual salary near than twice the median rate of their Black and Hispanic counterparts. Black workers were more likely to report they received payment in the form of cash. 30%, and this isn't on the slide, but in the same study, 30% of all workers surveyed in this study said that they were paid per module installed, which I would ask you as an audience what kind of quality you think might result from this kind of per module installed pay rate. And then Black workers were also more likely to pay for their own credentialing. Next slide, please. I think interestingly, and this kind of has shaped a bit of our research and looking at gaps, they found that in this survey, 99.6 of all respondents that they sampled were non-union. And that when you look at union apprenticeship programs, those apprenticeship programs have the potential to resolve a lot of the issues found in this study. And so I think focus on apprenticeship and union disposition in the solar industry is well-deserved as part of the workforce landscape. Next slide, please. So the conclusion, of course, and a conclusion that I think we have arrived at also is that given that unionized workers are more likely to earn higher wages, tend to have reduced racial and gender pay gaps, and more likely to be covered by employer-provided benefits, and are less likely to report unsafe working conditions, it follows that future research should investigate samples of primarily unionized solar workers. And so let's talk a little bit about union involvement in the solar industry and apprenticeship programs. Next slide, please. So what is apprenticeship? Let me start by saying, apprenticeship is really programs that are hard-earned and hard-fought by organized labor to serve workers. And so I think that the lens of apprenticeship is really like the gold standard in workforce. They are structured long-term training programs that combine on-the-job learning with direct supervision with related technical instruction that's paid for by the employer, and that leads to licensure. They include uniform supervisory requirements. So an apprenticeship programs do vary, but typically an apprenticeship program would have multiple businesses that all hire workers from the apprenticeship sponsor, or that are registered with the apprenticeship sponsor. And all of those different companies have the same uniform supervisory requirements, wage rates, benefits, and they conform to a national standard of apprenticeship that's approved by either a state apprenticeship agency or the U.S. Department of Labor. The related instruction that's required to meet the apprenticeship standard is received through this formal training partnership, and typically the cost is covered by the employer. There are 200 registered apprenticeship readiness programs in 29 U.S. states, which are a proven model to prioritize community hiring. Next slide, please. And so in the solar job census, you'll see that in response to that survey, a little over 10% of solar workers are currently represented by union collective bargaining agreement and or project labor agreement. And although apprenticeship levels are relatively low across the industry, the provisions in the Inflation Reduction Act for the maintenance of apprenticeship ratios to received tax benefits for projects over 1 megawatt should increase that, and so should prevailing wage requirements. And so I think what we'll see is and expect is a growing role of organized labor and apprenticeship in the solar industry. Next slide, please. You can, you're also, if you operate in the solar industry, you're aware that union representation is growing. In particular, one major announcement which happened last year was the Tri-Trade Solar Agreement between the IBEW, IUOE, which is the operating engineers, and LIUNA, which is a national commitment to scale workforce to serve large-scale solar development needs. I think that this is, for those that pay attention, a pretty big deal. A lot of times, if you understand some labor dynamics, it's not necessarily in the best interest of union apprentices or journey workers to have a kind of an announcement of broadly scaling the participation of new workers, because in some ways apprenticeship has evolved to protect the worker so that the worker has work, right? Can satisfy the work that is available. And in areas of like in times of recession and times of low construction, oftentimes these union locals will have less work than they have workers. And that's a struggle for all unions. So this broad recognition by the nation's largest construction unions that solar is a true development opportunity above and beyond just typical construction, and their commitment to satisfy that development need as a result or in kind of tandem with the federal legislation around the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and Inflation Reduction Act is really a tremendous opportunity for workers in the field, and a tremendous opportunity for the solar industry to work more closely with organized labor. Next slide, please. To help scale apprenticeship participation, there are a number of pre-apprenticeship programs that work to recruit and orient new workers towards apprenticeship. As an example from the MREA, we've never been able to successfully align ourselves in a pre-apprenticeship program. And so these organizations that really have worked very closely with unions as part of this to develop these relationships. And so I don't want to say that I want to express that not every training program needs to have a pre-apprenticeship relationship with a union to have a relationship with a union. Many unions will still recruit graduates from programs for career orientation, but don't have established pre-apprenticeship partnerships. These, of course, do and have been participating in the solar industry. This is a sample. There are more. Typically, these programs have some sort of credit and recruitment relationship directly with the sponsors, union sponsors, or non-union apprenticeship sponsors, and then prepare and pipeline their students into apprenticeship programs. Next slide, please. Let's talk a little bit about the Department of Labor determination. There has been an effort over a number of years to get solar installer as an apprenticeable occupation and to advance apprenticeship programs that serve solar installers. The Department of Labor has determined that based on its analysis of the work process schedules of existing apprenticeable occupations, the Office of Apprenticeship takes the position that commercial solar installation work can be conducted across a variety of such occupations, including but not limited to electricians, construction craft laborers, iron workers, operating engineers, and carpenters. And so what does this kind of determination mean? It means that from the Department of Labor perspective, that they're not entertaining apprenticeship programs specifically for solar installer or solar installation professional, and rather could entertain more broadly apprenticeship programs that say serve construction craft laborers that work on solar projects. And so we're kind of seeing this renewed kind of focus from the industry to align with existing occupations. Next slide, please. There are also non-union apprenticeship programs. What you'll notice typically from the union organized apprenticeships and what's present in the tri-trade agreement is a focus specifically on larger projects. And so that national commitment was really to satisfy the labor needs of large-scale solar projects. That does not mean that union programs don't work on, and some locals don't specifically work on residential and commercial projects, but more broadly, the demand for larger commercial construction projects plus utility scale solar projects is going to be a lift for the unions to meet. So there are non-union apprenticeship programs. I have one identified here with Associated Builders and Contractors. And they tend to be more engaged with residential contractors more broadly across the United States. As we know, most solar workers work in the residential market, and there seems to be a need across the industry for businesses that specifically serve residential and solar customers to have greater access to apprenticeship to attract, retain, and upskill their workforce. Next slide, please. Now, as I mentioned, the Department of Labor has determined that solar installer is not an apprenticeable occupation and that that work can be done by the existing construction occupations. State apprenticeship agencies have not come to the same conclusion. I think there are 23 states, and correct me if I'm wrong, but half the states in the US have state apprentice approval. And so they have a state office that approves apprenticeship programs, and a number of states have approved solar apprenticeship programs. So solar apprenticeship programs do exist. I've linked 3 examples here of state approved apprenticeship programs. Next. Right now, as IREC noted in the introduction, the U.S. Department of Labor has multiple ongoing efforts to support apprenticeship participation in solar business participation in apprenticeship. This includes the Interstate Renewable Energy Council, serving through the U.S. DOL Apprenticeship and Clean Energy Network as a pathway program. They have all kinds of support for businesses to do that. I've linked that here. In addition, Adaptive Construction Solutions, who has been doing this for a long time, also has programs available. And we're working with IREC on a USDA DOE funded project to develop national guideline standards of apprenticeship for existing occupations that serve the solar industry. So basically looking at national guideline standards and seeing if solar industry work sites can support those apprenticeship programs. Next slide, please. One of the values of apprenticeship, of course, as a kind of the gold standard for a solar worker, of course, if you enter into an apprenticeship program, not only do you get direct supervision of on-the-job learning hours that conforms to the industry occupation writ large and paid related instruction, but you get paid to learn. And that is a big benefit for hiring and retention. Which is needed in the industry because according to National Survey of Solar Employers, 40% of solar industry employers said it was very difficult to find qualified applicants. That's the highest level of difficulty ever recorded in the solar job census. And you can see a lot of the difficulty comes around a small applicant pool with not enough experience. And you can also see that the level of difficulty in finding qualified workers is spread throughout occupations, but really concentrated when you look at installation and project development. So experienced professionals in the field, this needs to be addressed by the solar industry because not only is it a workforce opportunity, but it's a real quality issue, right? We need experienced professionals with supervision out there installing high quality equipment because these systems last a long time. Next slide, please. You can also see, interestingly, kind of this is one of those chicken or egg stories, right? So what solar industry employers report to prefer is previous work experience. And that previous related work experience can be really any construction experience, but the more related and the more of it, the better. So 80+% of respondents, that's their highest need, is people with existing experience. That is an indication to training programs that hands-on experience, worksite experience, and on-the-job learning are of high value to employers. And few employers require any specific level of training, so that it's not as if employers are at this point recognizing a specific type of training as qualifying workers to satisfy. They're really looking at work experience as the highest priority. Next slide, please. Wages in the solar industry tend to be at or slightly above what you'll see in typical related construction work. So you can see here the median hourly wage for a solar PV installer is about $21.75. Again, this is 2022 data. My guess is this has gone up, which is a little bit more than a construction craft labor wage and a little less than all U.S. occupations. For example, a roofer, which, if you're working in a residential commercial site installation work, you'll be on the roof. They make slightly more. Again, though, a provision in the Inflation Reduction Act has prevailing wage requirements for megawatt plus projects. And if you're familiar with the industry, what you'll note is that a lot of residential and commercial businesses sub out on larger projects. And so I think it would be a mistake to assume that this megawatt plus provision won't have impacts specifically on the apprenticeship need and prevailing wage need for companies that predominantly service residential and commercial projects, but that also contract out to support megawatt plus size projects. Next slide, please. So we heard about this in some of the presentations before, but when it comes to equitable workforce development, workforce services are critical. Not only are targeted recruitment strategies and programs of absolute critical need in a tight job market to attract employees to the solar industry, but understanding career pathways and helping traditional career counseling services identify roles in the solar industry is of importance, and then wraparound services that support students' needs to get to the training, to cover childcare while at the training, to also maybe support childcare and other even support services are in some areas of very critical need. And then having relationships with employers and supporting job placement through paid internships or subsidizing some initial job placement is also what we found as we look at programs results in higher rates of training completion and higher rates of employment. Next, please. One, from the employer side, one investment that employers in the solar industry have made that has proven particularly effective is mentorship programs. You can see in the solar job census that 38% of U.S. solar firms offer some sort of formal mentorship program, which is really just formally connecting an experienced in-house say installation professional with a new installation professional, not in an apprenticeship supervisory relationship, because these businesses don't have apprenticeship programs, but they have this direct mentoring, which means that there is someone there that is helping this worker make sure that they're doing quality work, that they're prepared for the work site, that they're kind of dealing with issues effectively. And so mentorship is a proven method to increase worker success and retention from the solar industry's perspective. Next slide. And when it comes to equitable workforce participation, the question is, how is the industry organizing itself to increase employment in areas that have had persistent high employment? So employ people from areas that need employment the most. And you can see some of the efforts in the industry already. You can see kind of the workforce diversity in the solar industry. There is still a predominance of white male employees out there, but that is increasing. The diversity of the industry is increasing year after year as per a solar job census. And you can see that about a quarter of employees served have specific strategies and programs to increase diverse hiring. Next slide, please. In the context of this community of practice and the industry writ large, I think it's important to go back a few years, understand kind of like how we got to where we are, and the opportunity that is posed to all of us, both training providers and employers in the industry. Is the Biden administration had committed to this kind of Justice 40 principle, which was that 40% of the benefits of federal legislation would go to communities in need. And the question was, well, how do you define who those communities are? And through the legislative process and through this national engagement through Justice 40 that engaged community groups and leaders from all over the country, they've particularly identified a demographic and geographic demarcation by which a lot of the funding flows, both directly through the provisions and appropriated funding, but also through competitive solicitations and through not necessarily requirements, but through incentives to work in these jurisdictions. So let's go to the next slide. We see this as kind of a justice initiative. And so if you look at those two maps, what you'll see is the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, their Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, which includes Solar for All, has identified these CEGST jurisdictions. That's the top map, which are jurisdictions that look at kind of like census tract level, and their identification includes a whole range of demographic, historical, and geographic factors, which includes levels of unemployment, levels of poverty, levels of pollution, energy plant infrastructure closures, health impacts. And so from an environmental justice standpoint, I think this is an incredible win for public policy, and it's also being replicated by states. For example, we live in Wisconsin, and the state just south of us, Illinois, has legislation that specifically directs benefits to very similar jurisdictions with very similar principles as the EPA has delivered. And in addition to that, this bottom map is the Energy Bonus Tax Credit Program map, which gives a bonus tax credit for energy jurisdictions and identified low-income communities. So not only is there federal funding stream that's going through these federal appropriations and these provisions emanating from the provisions in the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and Inflation Reduction Act, but there's also tax benefits to those jurisdictions. And so the question really is, in this justice context, how are employers and training programs leveraging their will and the federal funding and federal tax provisions to direct training and recruitment from these areas that need the employment the most, and that leads to inclusion in the workforce? And how are these programs developing business and projects in those areas that sustain that level of employment? Next slide, please. So in our look, and I'll just kind of breeze through some of this stuff, and then we'll move on to discussion, because I want us to have a good half hour of discussion. We've looked across programs in the United States. We've interviewed our core team and others beyond that, and now we're asking you, like I said, we're going to send you a survey. What gaps really exist out there? And what are the best practices available for filling those gaps? So next slide, please. We really identified a few meaningful benefits, and those are at the title of the slide. So accessible and employer responsive training. So a goal would be that all communities have accessible and employer responsive training that leads to employment in the solar industry. One, of course, thing we identified is state level data on related employment demand, training availability, and job placement, with a specific focus on jurisdictions as identified by the Climate and Environmental Justice Screening Tool, which is the EPA CEJST screen tool, and demarcation that I identified. Coordinated recruitment and career support services with participation from the full range of partners that exist in workforce participation. How do we deepen our workforce participation and partnerships with our programs? If you're out there doing training, you know that there is a single and glaring limiting node, which is the availability of experienced instructors that have both the workforce experience in the solar industry and the instruction experience to bring these classes to life, to really instill the concepts, knowledge, skills, and abilities, and maintain those employer relationships to really build this workforce pipeline. That is a major gap. And then this availability of support services for at-risk students. We're going to get a bump in that with federal funding currently. So how do we make best use of those support services? Next slide. Another meaningful benefit is employment opportunities. We know from our programs, it's very hard to maintain kind of hot employment opportunities that are available upon completion of training. But that surely is a gap, and something that as trainers and employers, we need to work together in partnership. And then the apprenticeship program capacity to meet solar industry workforce needs. There's not much available data on that capacity. There's anecdotal, varies by state, of course, this availability, and it varies by market sector, from large scale solar to residential and commercial apprenticeship availability. So how do we scale the availability of apprenticeship programs to workers and enroll more employers with apprenticeship sponsors to offer those programs? And then career advancement, of course, another meaningful benefit. If you get a job post-rack and panel on a large scale solar facility out in some farm field, one motivation to keep you in the industry is the ability to advance in your career, make more money, do different work. So how are training programs working with employers to advance credential attainment and experience and the career advancement of workers? Next. And finally, we've identified some best practices from programs that we see. Those are also related to these meaningful benefits. Next slide. So you can see some of these best practices. Again, I'm not going to go over all of these in detail, but they're just kind of like, how do we satisfy these gaps? If you want to go to the next slide. So we have some with accessible and employer responsive training. Next. And then we have some with employment and career advancement. You can see, for example, scaling mentorship programs, building these kind of like regional relationships. Next, please. Apprenticeship program scaling, of course. Next. You're going to get all this in our follow-up survey. And so if you want to just go to the next slide, and then we'll go back to the questions. So you're going to get this presentation afterwards, and in the presentation, you'll see the link to the survey. We really ask that you take the time to fill this out. Our final report for scaling equitable workforce development will depend on feedback from all of you through this survey. There isn't a single source of data on this stuff. It varies by state. We don't know all of the good programs that are out there. So this survey is really going to help us fill in the gaps in this report and make sure that what we're recommending, which could be used, for example, as a framework for future funding opportunities, as a justification for future funding opportunities, is accurate and scalable. So, please, if you would be so kind as to fill this out. Let's go back to the previous slide and open it up to discussion based on the workforce presentations that you saw prior to my presentation and this landscape analysis and next steps. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Nick. A lot of great information presented today by the workforce development organizations, as well as MREA. So we're going to open it up to some questions, and we have a lot of dialogue in the chat, which is always, that's a staple for the webinars, and it's always refreshing to see all of the engagement and interaction. So I'm going to read the questions, and some of the questions did not specify who the questions were for. So if there's some puzzlement going on my face, that's why. So if this is your question, feel free to chime in and say that was for this particular organization. So we have a question here from Tracy Wallace, who says, as a grassroots, I think we addressed Tracy, but I'll read the question. As a grassroots organization providing solar training in low-income areas of Dallas, Houston, Austin, how can we refer our trainees onto apprenticeship programs required by the IRA-related installs? So Tracy, I think Cindy reached out to you specifically for this question. So IREC will take that and work with you. So I'll move on to the next question.
Well, I will have a general response to that.
Okay, go ahead.
Some context. So if you're looking at like all the occupation, the IRA apprenticeship ratio requirements are a requirement for actual on-the-job construction site workers, which includes the whole range of trades that might work on a solar job site. And in your area, each of those has a local. So the Carpenters Union would have a local, the IBEW would have a local, operating engineers would have a local, and they also have their training centers. But any employer that, or any employee that wants to, join an apprenticeship program would go to the local and apply. And usually there's like an entrance exam and interviews. And so I would encourage any program that's out there training that wants to have a relationship with apprenticeship to go to the local, tell them what you're doing, and see what the interest is, because that is just a really great place to start.
Thank you, Nick. Second question is, thank you so much to the team behind organizing all of these great presentations. Will a list of all presenters be made available to us in the audience? Yes. Jillian, a list will be made available. Gregory says, how are the training programs who are presenting addressing the requirement for licensed electricians in solar projects? Does your training include curriculum that helps learners become licensed electricians? It sounds like this, any one of the presenters can jump in, or Nick, you have a response, feel free.
Yeah, I have a simple response. Ours doesn't. We're aligned with NABCEP job task analysis for all of their occupations, and currently, we offer, for example, continuing education courses for electricians, but our courses, and I know that of many others, don't contribute to electrical licensure. That's again one of the benefits of both union and non-union apprenticeship programs, is those are tracked towards electrical licensure, which require supervised hours, so training program has to be specifically aligned for that. So as far as MREA programs, ours don't, and I would open it up to any other of the training providers if they have other comments.
Yeah, sure. This is Grant Sheffer here in South Carolina. What we did is found some IREC electrician programs and partnered with them. What we ended up having to do is actually sponsor students so that they became the apprentices within that electricians program. But to answer Mr. King's question, when we do a project, we actually work with the EPCs, or engineering, procurement, and construction companies that have the registered electricians already. So there would be a master electrician with the construction company that we choose to do the projects. But that is how we get those apprenticeships, the mentorship, if you will, on the projects. So yeah, I would say look for a local electrician apprenticeship program and partner with them to bring your solar electrician apprentices within their organization.
Thank you, Grant. Anyone else want to provide some insight to Mr. King's question? Okay, moving right along. As a principal inspector, this question is from Charles Illich. As a principal inspector for a utility income weatherization program, I would be interested in how you tie in making the buildings more efficient prior to or in conjunction with the solar installation. One want to take this question, or Charles, do you know, can you drop in chat and let us know exactly who this question was for? It was early on in the presentation.
Yeah, again, go ahead, sorry.
Go ahead, Grant.
Well, the success that we're having is work with the local weatherization programs. So any WAP or community, what is the word? Community, engagement organization that does weatherization for your counties. So you basically connect your COG and they'll put you in contact with your weatherization assistance program. That's kind of how we're having to tackle those energy auditor apprenticeships, where we can find employment for them is through those weatherization assistant programs in the state.
Thank you, Grant. Ed Hill responded to Tracy. He's happy to assist. He provided his email address to you, Tracy. Jessica Garcia, do we know how much overlap there is between solar workers who work on projects and installation with those on maintenance?
I can provide a little context here. I think the short answer is kind of, but there are 3 efforts underway currently to outline job task analysis and training requirements for operation and maintenance, PV operation and maintenance workers. NABCEP, of course, has one. Amicus, O&M, they are working on one, and so is SEIA. They have a standard. And so all of those are in development. And as you can see, kind of in the projection, post-IRA projection, and just as is known in the industry, operation and maintenance is a urgent and growing need. And so that is something that Solar Energy Industries Association, NABCEP, and Amicus O&M are all kind of addressing now. And my guess is that if they don't have their standards out yet, that they are coming very soon. And if anybody has more information on any of that, please share.
Nicole, I see your hand. You have a response to a question?
Sorry, that was an accident.
Oh, that's okay. Next question. Why are most solar jobs not majority time jobs? Different demands in different seasons, or different demands based on policy incentives?
Yeah, I can take that one too. Maybe I'm not the most qualified to answer this, so I'll give you what my general assumption is, and I think maybe we might see more of an explanation of this in the upcoming IREC solar job census. But if you are, for example, let's just say you're a construction craft laborer that works for a construction company that is part of a LIUNA apprenticeship program, right? It may be that you work on solar projects, that you go in, you do landscape grading, you do post rack and panel work or whatever as part of your joint labor agreement to do at that time. But that may be only one job that you do in the year. You might next be working on an airport or working in a hospital. And so the question is, if you're looking at kind of solar's impact on national employment, or you're trying to define pathways to the solar industry, is our methodology of the census capturing all of that work on solar job sites? Because if you're an IBEW electrician, you might not identify as a solar worker, even if you spent 50, 60, 70% of your work hours in the last year working on solar job sites. And so I think this changing nature of the solar work site, the increasing role of the trades, is, raising this question of how do we define the solar workforce, if that answers the question.
Cindy, I'm going to ask you to take over for just a second.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see, I think we had another one. I don't know if we got this from Gregory King. How are the training programs who are presenting addressing the requirement for licensed electricians in solar projects? And does your training include curriculum that helps learners become licensed electricians? Don't know if we have anybody on who might be able to answer that. I know that's always
I think we discussed that one already.
Did we grab that one? Okay.
I think we're at what does it mean for a position to not be apprenticeable?
Oh, there we go.
Yes.
Yeah, I can take that one. So what it means is to have an apprenticeship program, you need a couple things. The first is you need either a state apprenticeship agency or the U.S. Department of Labor to recognize a national guideline standard of apprenticeship for that occupation. And so if you were to go just like Google, go to apprenticeship.gov or Google National Guideline Standards of Apprenticeship, you get to a website where you can look at all these, like all of the standards. So there's so IBEW has a national guideline standard of apprenticeship for electrician. And that has to be recognized by the Department of Labor, because once it's recognized, then a sponsor like the IBEW or Associated Builders and Contractors, they can then file at the state level an apprenticeship program that conforms with that national guideline standard. And so when the Department of Labor determines an occupation to not be apprenticeable like solar installer, then they won't approve a national guideline standards of apprenticeship, which means that an apprenticeship sponsored employer can't file a program that conforms with it. And so what that means for solar industry, especially those that operate in a state that gets their apprenticeship approvals through the Department of Labor, is that if you want to meet your apprenticeship requirements, you have to work with existing occupations, which could include construction craft labor or carpenter or electrician, because the DOL has signaled that they will not recognize a solar installer as apprenticeable, if that makes sense.
Thanks, Nick. And there was a question from Jennifer in the chat that I moved over to answer because you covered that information in your presentation. What do you mean by solar installer not apprenticeable? So Jennifer, I didn't just ignore you or delete your question. It is in the answered option of the question and answer not format. I don't even know, my mind is completely blank, but it's in the answer to question and answer. I just took the information Nick had from his presentation and posted it there. The next question is Nick saying that union apprenticeship grads are mostly employed on large scale projects, smaller businesses favoring non-union labor?
I wouldn't want to be quoted as saying that. But let's take states that I'm familiar with. So if you look at Wisconsin, in Wisconsin, the vast majority of residential and commercial solar installations are installed by non-union contractors, which means that those that do have an apprenticeship program are working with Associated Builders and Contractors, which is the non-union apprenticeship program. Now, there are political reasons for that and market development reasons for that. But if you cross the border in Illinois, what you'll see, especially in the Chicago area, which I'm just going to give a shout out to Bob Hattier, who I think is on this call. Maybe he's still listening. They have probably, I mean, I hate to be, I hate to say this, but in my experience, one of the best solar training programs in the country, and they have a very strong focus on residential and commercial, and that's a different state. They're a deregulated state, so the utilities generally aren't a big player in determining how the state solar policy rolls out, and they just have that disposition. So it really depends on the state. What I referenced in my presentation is that when you look at the union disposition in the tri-trade solar agreement, it's specific to large-scale solar. And that means they have specifically committed to scaling their workforce to serve larger projects and haven't specifically committed to scaling their workforce to serve the more distributed commercial and residential projects.
Nick, next question. Does funding for training pay for workers that will not seek union employment?
That's a general question. I don't know the answer kind of generally. What I can say is that if you look at the buckets of funding for solar training, the federal buckets of funding that are either kind of announced, either formula funding, announced, or coming, there's definitely a tendency towards apprenticeship in that funding. That doesn't mean that there are not opportunities for funding for non-apprenticeship programs. I think Solar for All, we're going to see what that looks like, but that includes workforce, and like nearly every single state in the country has gotten funding. And my guess is not all of that funding will be for apprenticeship because those apprenticeship pathways simply just don't exist. And so the short answer is no. But I think the longer answer is if you have a relationship with apprenticeship program, or you have a new apprenticeship program that serves the solar industry, the likelihood of support from like pass-through funding from the state or Department of Labor, or even potentially Department of Energy, is probably greater than if not.
Is funding available to train adjacent field workers, carpenters, electricians, roofers to be trained part-time in best practice solar array installation?
I think the answer to that is a clear yes, because every apprenticeship program that exists, for example, I'm familiar with LIUNA. LIUNA is scaling their solar training as part of their apprenticeship program. And I think IBW surely has centered solar training, but I think that now, and that's part of the tri-trade inherent commitment of tri-trade solar agreement, is to increase the related instruction related to solar. So I think the answer to that is yes. I also see that from ABC. And you can see that from these other solar specific apprenticeship programs that states are approving. So yes, I think what we're seeing is a recognition across the construction trades that solar jobs are a big opportunity, and that training related to solar job sites is increasing.
Thank you, Nick. We have two more questions, which will likely take us to time, so perfect timing. In PA, Solar companies are unable to meet the apprenticeship standards of the IRA, so are cut out of commercial projects that are over 1G but smaller than the unions are interested in. Has anyone come up with a solution other than subbing jobs to out-of-the-state firms from a state with an apprenticeship using a different apprenticeship?
I'll talk about this. I don't know how to answer to your question, but I'll kind of talk about the need here in any specific state. And so if, like, of course, the first step in meeting the apprenticeship requirement is to approach labor, electricians, carpenters, union, construction craft laborers, operating engineers, and see if they're ready and willing to partner with you on the construction side. If what you're saying is you've done that and there's no capacity there, well, now we're in a pickle, right? Because how do you then meet the apprenticeship requirement? And I think that is where we see this across the, we're in this interesting phase where, like, I would compare it to domestic content requirements, for example, in batteries. Where do we get it if it doesn't exist? And that is this place in public policy where we have incentives out there, but we have to innovate that demand. And so I think that there are a few pathways here. One, I'm not sure if Pennsylvania, and maybe someone can chime in, if Pennsylvania has a state apprenticeship agency, you can go to one of those links of the programs that were approved in Oregon or Florida, copy their application for apprenticeship and submit it to your state and see if you can develop an apprenticeship program if that's of interest. You can also continue to pressure the organized labor unions to work with you. So I think that there are pathways, but there's no clear answer and clear solution. The opportunity here is IREC has funding to support you through the ACE network. And so I know Janelle is going to say that. I want to promote that. That link is in our presentation. It was shared earlier, and they may be very well able to help you satisfy those apprenticeship needs because the Department of Labor is investing in apprenticeship expansion.
Nick, if you would like additional information on the ACE network and what we're able to provide, and as it relates to technical assistance and setting up your registered apprenticeship program, I will definitely drop my email address in the chat. Last question from Holly. The OE, laborers, and IBEW do an amazing job of training and, well, this is just a comment, and handling the utility jobs in PA.
This is, your question is kind of supporting this contention, right? And that there's this need in this smaller scale market, whether it be 10 megawatts and below or whatever it is that you're seeing for apprenticeship programs. And I think one of the reasons that this was funded, right, this community of practice, which you are all now part of and which we want your feedback from, is to identify these very needs and communicate that to DOE and other stakeholders so that they accordingly invest in the development of programs that meet this need, whether that be scaling union apprenticeship programs, developing new apprenticeship programs, whatever it is, what is the strategy to scale? So I appreciate you sharing that and recognize that that can be a concern in states across the country.
Well, thank you all for joining us today on our community convening of workforce development programs. This was a great opportunity to highlight not only the great work of MREA, but of several organizations who were able to share short presentations. We are definitely looking forward to getting this webinar and the accompanying resources out to you. So thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your input. Thank you for your engagement. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, everyone.
Everyone.